Okay, we're just admitting a couple more folks here as they've transitioned from one class to another. I appreciate everybody jumping in here on time and getting here as soon as you can. I know that you're busy going from one Google Meet to another. My hat's off to everyone, but I'm going to go ahead and get started. I just want to thank Albany City School District for allowing me to come in and present on living wage. I want to thank the New York State Work-Based Learning Coordinators Association. Uh, this idea came out of our monthly meeting that I participate in concerning living wage and cost of living and reaching out into the different classrooms. And I want to thank Miss Lindsay Simmons and Miss Wendy, your business math teacher, and your CTE instructors, all of them for allowing me to come in and present to you all. So thank you. I appreciate everybody's attention. I appreciate everybody's participation in the initial survey, which we're going to go over shortly. So my name is Tim Coleman. I am a recruitment and outreach specialist with Local 669. Local 669 is a labor union in the building trades. We are America's fire protection union. Local 669 has jurisdiction in 48 states. So we're all across the country. We've been around since 1915 and we have close to 14,000 members. We're part of the United Association of Apprentice and Journey Worker Welders, Plumbers, Pipe Fitters, Steam Fitters, HVAC, Refrigeration Techs, and Sprinkler Fitters. And that international association is commonly called the UA. The UA has 355,000 members that are located in 300 locations across North America. In New York State, we have 12 UA locals from the tip of Long Island and Montauk all the way to Erie County, out past west of Buffalo. And we're one of the 12. We're the largest local in the UA, as I mentioned. And what we do, we don't do lawn sprinklers. We do overhead fire protection systems, life safety systems. So we handle all incoming water supply and the installation, testing, and maintenance of these integrated fire suppression systems. There's actually 2,000 different types of sprinkler heads, and 80% of what we put in is water, but the other 20% could be foam, it could be gas, or it could be antifreeze, very sophisticated systems. And we have a tremendous program that we have been um, uh, training our workforce since the 1937 passing of the Fitzgerald Act, and that is a registered 5-year earn while you learn apprenticeship program. And when I say registered, we're registered with the Federal Department of Labor and the State Department of Labor. Okay, so enough about the sprinkler fitters, and I'll show you how to get more information about becoming a sprinkler fitter. But I want to talk about cost of living and living wage. So here's the goals of this two-part class. First of all, I want us to understand, and I want you to grasp the definition of a cost of living and the definition of living wage. So what are they? What do they mean? Secondly, I want you to understand how to research cost of living in your area. And we're talking specific to Albany County in New York. And then thirdly, I want you to understand how to complete a cost of living calculator. So this is important for you to do your own work, right? So I've got a take-home assignment that we'll talk about later in this presentation, that you will be using a model, a cost of living calculator, and you'll understand by doing how to complete the cost of living calculator for Albany County. And then number 4 and 5 have to do with the building trades. I want, after the second presentation, and we review cost of living and what a living wage is and what we fight for in the unions, I want you to completely understand that you don't fail into construction, that this is a good living, that this is the #1 pathway into the middle class over the last 100 years, actually, according to Cornell, cited in the Wall Street Journal. And then finally, I want you to understand what unions fight for. In collective bargaining, we fight for 3 main things: living wage, benefits for our members and families, and I'm talking medical, dental, vision, prescription, those types of benefits. And then finally, we want and we fight for our members to have the opportunity to retire with dignity. So those are 5 things over the next 2 presentations that I want us to grasp and to understand. So let's talk about cost of living. And I've got a short video. And we're going to listen to Kenzie talk and share with you definitions, and really you'll just see some good examples of what cost of living is.
What is the cost of living? Cost of living is the amount of money needed to sustain a certain level of living, including basic expenses such as housing, food, taxes, and healthcare. Cost of living is often used to compare how expensive it is to live in one city versus another. Cost of living is tied to wages, as salary levels are measured against expenses required to maintain a basic standard of living throughout specific geographic regions. Cost of living can be a significant factor in the personal wealth accumulation because a smaller salary can go further in a city where it doesn't cost a lot to get by, while a large salary can seem insufficient in an expensive city. According to Mercer's 2015 Cost of Living Survey, cities with the highest cost of living standards included Tokyo, Osaka, Moscow, Geneva, Hong Kong, Zurich, Copenhagen, and New York City. U.S. cities with a high cost of living as of 2015 included Honolulu, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., and San Francisco. A cost of living index compares the cost of living in a major city as compared to the corresponding metropolitan area. The index incorporates the expense of various components that comprise basic human needs, creating an aggregate measure to which new entrants into the workforce may refer. As college graduates weigh employment alternatives and currently employed job seekers consider relocation, the index provides an informative snapshot of rental, transportation, and grocery costs. In 2016, using New York City as a benchmark for other U.S. cities, San Francisco maintains the highest cost of living in the Americas. Rental costs in San Francisco are about 3% higher than in New York, and food prices sit 22% above corresponding levels found in New York. By contrast, the citizens of Reno, Nevada enjoy a cost of living approximately 43% below that of New York residents when analyzing basic expenses on an aggregate basis. For a family with 2 adults and 2 children, the average cost of living in the United States hovered around $65,000 per year in 2015. The figure does exclude discretionary spending on non-essential goods and services such as leisure, entertainment, and luxury items. The debate over raising the U.S. federal minimum wage is deeply rooted in the disparity between the lowest wage allowed by law and the earnings needed to maintain an adequate cost of living. Proponents of a minimum wage hike found that productivity levels of workers increased since 1968 as unequally correlated to the minimum hourly rate of pay in 2012. As the minimum wage once tracked the increase in productivity, the divergence between earnings and worker efficiency have reached historically disproportionate levels. By contrast, opponents of a minimum wage increase contend that a raise could spur higher consumer prices as employers offset rising labor costs.
Okay, an interesting, excellent presentation by Kenzie. And there's a couple things that I wanted to point out just to really summarize. One, cost of living is an index that's used to compare what it costs to live in one area compared to another. And Kenzie talked about using this information to make a decision possibly on where you're going to live after you graduate from school. We're actually going to use this information, and I'm going to show you where to get the information to help you understand what is the definition of a good job and to help drive you into what are you going to do when you graduate from Albany High School. And really there's 3 E's that I like to follow. You either enroll in higher education, you enlist in the military, or you find employment, right? Those E's are equal. It depends on what path you want to pursue. And in the second presentation, I'm going to talk about the employment path and talk about the reason why goal number 4 is you don't fail into construction, because there's some wonderful news that I'll share with you. So here's what's interesting, and this is really why we're talking about this, is those indicators on what it costs to live in a specific area. So we're talking Albany County, right? So these are necessities, as Kenzie mentioned: housing, food, healthcare, transportation, and also the cost of higher education. I think that's important to really just understand that. And another indicator of how expensive it is to live in a certain market is the cost of technology. What do I mean by technology? Well, think about how we're talking right now and communicating. We're communicating through the broadband. We're communicating on Google Meets. We're communicating on Zoom. You're using your smartphone. So can you imagine if you didn't have that? And we know that there are actually school districts, that there are thousands of households that uh, don't have Chromebooks. They don't have access. So what have they been doing the last 12 months or so? They haven't really been able to go to school. All right, so that's a major, major disadvantage. But let's even break this down even further. And this is what's dramatic, is since 2009, I went back to 2009 just to pull some numbers for everyone. The cost of rent has increased 30%. The cost of food or groceries has increased 28%. The cost of healthcare premiums has increased 71%. So there's a reason why just a few years ago that, I think we're all old enough that we realize that President Obama was carrying the torch for healthcare reform. And the major reason is the cost of healthcare. The cost of higher education during that same time frame has gone up 36%. And in some cases, when you look at private institutions versus public, it's gone up even more, as close to even 60%. The cost of technology, the cost of access to the internet, cable, your smartphone, what it costs for those services has increased during that time frame 35%. Okay, so it costs more to afford the necessities that we need to live. And that's okay if the wages go up, right? So we can continue to afford that. So let's look at the wages though. So if the wages are going up at that same rate, we're in good shape. So what have they done? I went back actually even further to 1979, and I grabbed some data from the Brookings Institute. And Brookings is one of these big brain think tanks, and they're down in Washington, D.C., and they actually help policymakers and they help advocates understand very complex problems and help to derive solutions. And I share this with you because some of you may go work for a think tank and work for a consulting firm, work for an organization that influences policymakers and decision makers. So let's go back to 1979. This is what Brookings did. And they surveyed non-self-employed, so individuals that are working for someone else, the ages 18 to 64. And the wages, the percent change for the top 10% increased just about 35%. So those are the top 10% in earnings. So they made more money during that time frame. The 50 percentile made a little over 10%. The 20th percentile made less than 10%, and the 10th percentile less than 5%. So that's the bottom 10th percentile in wages, right, in earnings. And the 5th percentile, actually, their percentage went the wrong way. So that's a negative number. Okay, so that's looking at the typical worker during a little more time frame than 2009. So you look at these numbers, these percentages. Let's go back to the other slide. You can see rent's gone up 30%, food's gone up 28%. So the top 10% has that covered, because their wages increased during that same time frame. But you look at the 50th percentile, that's below 15%, and they're not making ends meet. So how do you find cost of living data? And what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce you to Alice. Okay, so I'm going to introduce you to Alice. And who is Alice? Alice is an acronym that stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. So this is a working household. It's a working household. And it's a new way of defining and understanding the struggles of households that earn above the federal poverty level, but not enough to afford bare bone household budgets. So we talked about in previous slides those bare bone household budgets, those necessities. So what's interesting is that there are 26 million Americans that currently live below the federal poverty level. There's an additional 46 million Americans that are Alice households. So when we looked at that slide and we looked at earnings, Alice households are not in that top 10%. Okay. Some of them are actually in the 50 percentile range. Okay. So these are households that are out there busting their butt, doing the right thing, and they just can't make ends meet. So this is a massive, massive database. And you can access that database by going to United for Alice. And this database was developed through the efforts of the United Way and some rock stars. And they're Alice Project folks that are based out of, a lot of them are based out of Rutgers University. Now, what I also did was I included a link on here because you're going to get a copy of this presentation for your reference and for your homework assignment. And I gave you a link to the Capital District, so the Albany County, right? So it's by county, and I'm calling it Capital District in New York, but it's by county. I'm giving you the information for the county. I don't want you to get lost in the database because it's massive, but I want you to go and explore and use your mouse and click and go to it and learn and just broaden your exposure to this information. Because some of you, and I know this is a very talented group of individuals, some of you may get into database management. You may find this information so fascinating that you want to go become an advocate. Possibly you go on and you get a law degree and you represent and you fight for those that are underserved and you fight for Alice households. So use this information, not just, okay, it's just another database, but use it as like, wow, that's valuable information. That's going to help me decide which path I'm going to go and pursue in those 3 E's: employment, enrollment, employment, enrollment, and enlistment, right? Those 3 E's. So here's the snapshot. This is Albany County. So I went ahead and I pulled this. And again, this information is going to be in the Google Drive as an attachment or resource for you. So for every county in the United States, there are 3 main buckets. Okay, and those 3 buckets are, this is a household, right? It makes sense. We've got a single adult household. We've got a 2 adult household with 1 working, 1 at home. And then we've got a 2 adult household with both working. And each of those 3 main buckets or 3 main criteria or categories has 4 different subcategories. So as an example, we just follow the columns down. 1 adult with 0 children. That's a subcategory. 1 adult with 1 child, subcategory. 1 adult with 2 children and 1 adult with 3. And you can see the 2 adults with 1 working, 1 at home. It's the same, 4 subcategories: 0 children, 1 child, 2 child, 3 child. And then 2 adults both working, same 4 subcategories again. And then you look down the left column, those are the essentials. Those are the necessities that we talked about, that Kenzie talked about: food, childcare, medical, housing, transportation. Okay, and it even breaks it down by taxes, and it tells you at the bottom for every county in the United States what the income needs to be above an Alice household level. So here's an example. One adult with two children, the annual cost for food is $7,760. The average cost of food for two adults, both working with two children, is $10,303. Right? And I'm not going to go through every line, but you can see one adult with one child housing is $13,380. Two working adults with three children, the housing is $16,764 a year. Right? And then you can see the transportation. So depending on what category and what subcategory, the numbers may change. And in some cases, they're exactly the same, right? So why are there zeros there? Think about it. Two adults, one working, one at home with one child. Well, one's at home, so that household does not need childcare. So it's $0 across the board in every category, subcategory, with two adults working. And then you could look at these cost of living, living wage numbers that are down here, which shows, okay, this is what the household needs to earn, right? And with two adults both working, that's a combined household. So this is really good information because you probably have had discussions and realized what's the conversation on raising the minimum wage, right? It's not just that, hey, we want to be nice people and we want everybody to make more money. Well, that's great, but there's a reason behind it, right? You've already learned that, well, the cost of living has increased, the essentials have increased, 30, 40, 50% since 2009. The wages have not. Okay. So that's the conversation. That's the meat and potatoes. That's the brick and mortar of why there is such an emphasis on raising the minimum wage. So again, this is from the Alice Project. This is the summary sheet. So to do your homework assignment, you only need to go to the summary sheet. But again, I encourage you to go explore that website. So here's something I just want to just shift gears a little bit here. This was it was actually an attendance assignment 2 weeks ago when you checked into class. It was a match and draw, and I had the salaries all mixed up. So here's the answers. Take a photo of this. So a union sprinkler fitter was 669 in the Albany County before overtime is earning $78,312. Some of you all wanted to be a chef. That's the average salary for chef, nurses. And in nurses, you're going to have in your Google Drive, you're going to have a database that comes from MZ that has actually 2,000 different career codes. And when you look at nurses, there's so many different types of nurses. There's orthopedic nurses, there's psychiatric nurses, there's nurse practitioners, there's anesthesiologist nurses, and the nurse salaries are well over $100,000. So I took a general RN nurse, librarian, that's their average salary, real estate agent, teacher, journalist, artist, doctor. Doctor, I took a physician. You look at surgeons, you look at anesthesiologists, you look at the other specialties. And again, that database will show you that. You'll see that the compensation changes. A psychiatrist, that's someone that has a PhD. I took the average on that particular vocation as well. So that's the answer. And you're going to get a copy of that. So here's something to look at here. This is a snapshot, and this is going to be in your Google Drive as well. What I did was we have it in the MZ breaks it down actually in hourly, and then the hourly wage. So teachers, $33.42 an hour. It tells us what the minimum education level is, and then I annualize the salary. Librarians and media collectors, $30.33 an hour. Jumping down to family medicine physicians, $102 an hour. Chefs and cooks, $23.50. Retail salespeople, $12.46. Non-union carpenters, non-union electricians. Okay, this is the average. Okay, this is non-union. Okay, this is not union. I put in union sprinkler fitters with local 669. The union electricians, their wage rate's actually higher than the sprinkler fitters. So you'll see that that number is there. So I just want to make sure you understand the carpenters and electricians that we pulled from that report are non-union. A bunch of folks talked about being mechanics. That's an average there for mechanic, $21 an hour. And again, this third column, typical entry level, is the basic education level that you need to obtain to get an entry level position, right? So to be a doctor, you're going to have to get a doctor of medicine or a PhD. So here's the homework assignment. You all have in Google Docs a cost of living calculator that I developed, and it looks just like this. So highlighted in yellow is what you need to fill out. And I'm giving you, telling you what your resource is, what your study guide, right? So to plug in the numbers for the yearly cost for housing, food, medical, dental, vision benefits, technology, utilities, transportation, childcare, you're going to go to resource B. And resource B is this right here. So that's going to be in your Google Docs. So you're just going to look it up. Okay. You're going to list on there in yours what the position is, how many children, and whether you have a spouse or not. Okay, resource A is the wages. So you're going to go to resource A, which is this document right here, and you're going to pick one of those. Okay, and you're going to put in what the hourly wage is, and then how many hours a week you're going to work. This one here on student loans, there's actually a drop down, and the drop down will give you the ability to select whether you need a technical school, a high school, a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, or a PhD. And the monthly payment will change. So on average, well, first of all, there's 43 million Americans that currently carry a heavy student loan debt. And on average, those that borrow are in debt over $17,000, close to $18,000. With a 3.24 loan rate, every month for 10 years, that individual is going to be paying off their student loan at a clip of about $380 a month. And you're going to see, as someone that goes on to get a master's degree, then a doctorate or a doctor of medicine, those student loans can even increase even higher to over $1,000 a month, right off the top. So what this calculator is going to do is it's going to actually flow into your monthly income driven from resource A, and then your expenses. And will tell you how much is left over after all these necessities are paid. So this is going to be the money that you have, you know, to go out and live. Those are just discretionary funds. Okay, so we're actually at the intermission here, and
intermission time. Intermission time.
Okay, I love that slide. I'm going to share a couple of these slides here with you just to review. So I want to make sure everybody understands it. In Google Drive, okay, so resource A. This is what resource A looks like. Okay, and again, that's on Google Drive. And resource B looks just like this. Okay, so again, that's the snapshot that was in the presentation. This is coming from the Alice project. And you're going to use those resources to fill out the cost of living calculator. And the cost of living calculator looks just like this. Okay, so that's what was in the slide. So everybody's going to have their own. So this is the drop down that I talked about. Is you're just going to go here and select, okay, I need to have a bachelor's degree. And we'll adjust your loan payment basically. Okay, is it 100% accurate? No, because of course there's scholarships, there's merit-based, there's needs-based scholarships. But again, this is grabbing from, on average, those that borrowed. So we're going to make some assumptions with this model. Okay, and it will auto-calculate. So let's just say, and I want you to just see how this flows, that that's rent, groceries, benefits. Let's say they're costing you $100 a week. Technology, that auto calculates. So I put that in there. So that one you don't have to change. Retirement costs. Let's say you're putting $200 a month in. Transportation costs. It's $550. It automatically calculates the taxes. Child care, you're spending. Let's say you're spending $1,700. Okay. So then we look at what the hourly and then put in monthly. So my mistake there. So you're looking at 12, let's say that's 15,000. And we need to go to, I'm just going off the top of my head. We're going to actually go to that resource to give us the information that we need. But I just want to quickly put some assumptions in there for you. So you can just kind of see this flow here. Okay, and then on average, somebody said we're going to use that mechanic, right? You're earning $21 an hour, which sounds like a good deal. You're in the hole every month. So you have to make decisions. You have to figure out, the shell game. Maybe you have an aunt that can pick up some of that childcare, or you have a mom that's going to be doing that. So I want you to look at, again, we're looking at two things. What does it cost to live in that area? And then secondly, you're going to have the data for wages. Okay. So the final piece I want to show you, everyone will have, because I know I covered a lot, is that everyone's going to have directions. So for assignment 2, because we already completed assignment 1, you're going to go to United for Alice. This information here will tell you how to navigate the site so you can come up with your own snapshot of Albany County, or you know what? You can go to resource A because I grabbed that data for you. But I want to just show you so you have an opportunity to really just go through the database because it's amazing. The wages we grabbed from MZ, you're getting a copy of that as well. You're also getting a massive spreadsheet that has the wages for 2,000 different job titles. So you're going to fill out the cost of living calculator. All right. That's the objective. And then when we get together again, you and I are going to go through a cost of living calculator, and I'm going to plug in the wage rate for the sprinkler fitters. And we're also going to talk about benefits and what the unions fight for. So you're going to see the impact of our collective bargaining when it comes to cost of retirement for you, the cost of benefits for you, and that living wage, right? So it's a three-part deal, right? And you're going to walk out of that saying, boy, oh boy, Tim's right. You don't fail into construction, okay? So I'm going to just share with you in the chat box my contact information, my email. If you have questions, you can reach out to Miss Wendy if you feel comfortable, and she can get with me if I need to clarify anything, or you can reach out to me directly. You know, I'm here to help. I want both of us to accomplish what we set out to do, and that's master those 5 goals that we initially talked about. So I want to thank everybody for having me in. This has been a wonderful, wonderful series of classes. And again, I look forward to seeing you shortly in the next week or two for part 2. Thank you.